Welcome back to the channel, guys. It is another episode in the VW Bus restoration series, and today I'll be utilizing this beautiful June 1st summer day to do some work on the VW Bus. Goal of this video is to tackle all the work needed to rebuild and restore this VW 010 automatic 3-speed transmission, as well as the fluid change and seal changes on the transaxle. So in order to help with rebuilding this bus transmission, I went ahead and ordered an automatic rebuild kit from Cobra Transmission, some other items like a new filter of the pistons. These were a separate order. They did not come in the rebuild kit, which I believe is this here with most of the rubbers and some of the clutches and friction discs there. Have I ever rebuilt a transmission before? No. Am I a little unsure of what I'm getting into? Maybe. But the goal is to be able to record everything that comes out in a specific order, make sure I get everything in detail, use the resources that I have between the forums, the manuals that were recommended to me, and make sure everything goes back, clearances are there. Can't say I'm an expert on automatic transmissions, not exactly sure how they work. They're kind of like boxes of black magic to me, to some extent. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure what condition this transmission is in. We never really had a chance to explore it. We were mainly focused on engine work last time we tried to get this thing up and running like years ago, and won't really know how the transmission works until we find out how the engine works. So why I'm doing this is because I have it out. The kit is like 300 bucks, so I figured while it's out, let me go ahead and clean it up. And I've mentioned before in previous videos, basically anything that I touch or that gets disassembled in this process, I want to make sure that it's clean and as close to restored as possible going back. Another thing I want to mention is that same policy goes toward the engine bay. And I think I mentioned in my last video, but I spent a ton of time brushing and degreasing out in here, and I at least want to throw a light coat of paint on the interior here. What we're doing now is repairing the 2 battery tray areas in the bus. This was completely rusted through, so we cut out some of the sheet metal, and we're going to use this top piece after some bending and hole punching to kind of weld it in place. That way it's fresh metal there, and that'll get a coat of paint on it eventually as well. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, so without further ado, let me set the camera up and we'll try to dig into this transmission. So I've got the workbench degreased and cleaned up. What I'd like to do is, as I start disassembling things from the transmission, in order to keep things in sequence the way they came off and in the correct orientation facing upward, I'd like to lay things out in a sequential order. So that's why I want a clean workbench, and also I'm gonna have a lot of transmission fluid that's gonna spill out of this thing, and I've got some oil pans sitting underneath the table to catch things as they drip down this crease here. So first things first, I think it would be best to remove this transmission oil pan. I have removed this once already to verify what type of filter was in here to order a replacement one. So there's not going to be as much fluid as there normally would be. That being said, let's get it off. I didn't even tighten this down all the way when I put it back. That's what the inside of the pan looks like. There is definitely some signs of moisture, and I'm not really surprised because this was sitting for 20 years maybe without real use. So there's some crap in there, maybe friction material, maybe just stuff that wasn't caught by the filter, and some moisture, but we'll be cleaning all that out. And then this old gasket is not too bad. It's a little stiff, so I'm pretty sure the kit sent a new replacement one of those. Just want to get a shot here of all of these mechanical items underneath oil pan before I remove the valve body. I think eventually this valve body has to come off, so I'm just going to maybe aim it upward like that. And so let me get this filter housing off first. Housing is off, and this is the filter for the transmission, and it has a ton of clutch material on there, I'm assuming. It all seems consistent and really tiny. Now I'm gonna try removing the valve body, and I believe in order to do that, I just have to remove these 10mm hex bolts. 1, 8, 9, 10, 11 of them. All right, that wasn't too bad. I do see a lot of fluid sitting here, so I'm just gonna pick this up and try to dump it out in my catch can real quick. All right, now that that's out, I'm gonna begin removing the items from the top here. First thing is going to be removing this gasket, this plate, and then there's another paper gasket of the same size on the back here, and I have to remove this butt head right here in the front. It wasn't too bad. Those gaskets are really flimsy, so I'm glad I'll be replacing those. Next is this guy. There is a spacer in here, and my technical knowledge is going to be challenged in this video, but bear with me and we'll get it figured out. I think this is called a ring gear, and these are the planetary gears, which somehow rotate like that and go around this sun gear here in the middle. Now I have a circular clip holding in this clutch pack that is movable by finger, so it should be pretty easy to get out with a little pick or something. Down. Now there is almost a race bearing on top of here. I'm gonna flip this back upside down. This planetary gear set comes out. Flip upside down. All right. Now we have access to one more of these tabbed washers and then a flat washer. It is flat, but it's splined to this worm gear. Again, flipped down. Next, there's another one of these bearings. Next, I'm gonna remove this gear set, like so. And then there's another washer with tabs, like this. Tabs pointed up, sits in there. Another washer with tabs, like that. Now I'm able to remove all of these clutch bands. As I'm looking at it now, friction pad or the clutch part is on top, and there's a metal on the bottom. Here it is in order that it came out. Next item to come out is this smaller clutch pack. A series of discs in there too, and they're all held in by a circlip there, so I'm gonna flip this, put it down. Next we have this brake band. Not exactly sure how this thing works, but there's only one. Flip, put it down. Tab spacer that sat behind the most recent clutch pack. This one doesn't want to come out, so I'm going to leave that in there. That is all of the loose parts, and now I think all I have left is just removing these 5 10mm bolts in order to get to the oil pump in the back there, and I think that's it. This is the spring-loaded plate with the shaft and some almost like piston rings, and this metal tabbed washer that I had trouble getting off, so it's staying on, and there is a gasket on the back there. This one I'm gonna leave up. The last item is just this big piston, I guess you'd call it, but it won't come out until I remove these 2 pieces here. And to do that, I have to unbolt it from this side here, and then I have to remove the circlip holding in the servo piston on this side, which will release one of these guys holding in the final drum or piston. I'm not sure what you call it. I know this is spring loaded. There's also a spring in here for this almost like a pressure relief. Not really sure what that does. Definitely still struggling with getting this retaining clip off. Oh, here we go. I at least got it to move. Should be able to use a combination of these picks to get it where I want. Ouch. Jeez. Not going as planned. There it goes. Now, should be a way, maybe with a pallet, to tap on this and release the pressure. All right, let's give this a try. There it goes. It's kind of satisfying. bunch of O-rings in here. Do I understand the purpose of this thing? Not really, but I see how it's built, and hopefully the kit I ordered contains everything needed to replace it. There's a lot of crap in here though, a lot of material. Empty this out. Not sure if you can see that, but wow, there's a lot of junk. Now, may be able to remove this disc. I still need to remove this bolt in order to get the last piston out, and I think I just need to undo the nut there. Don't know why that is so stuck on there. Jeez, maybe reverse thread? Alright, just needed the Ugga-Tugga. So last thing I need is a T30, and should be able to, maybe not. Threading is normal, you see? Look at that. This pin actually comes right out from the inside, and that frees up the last piston here. Huh. Well, anyway, I think that completes the disassembly of this thing. It took maybe 2 hours, not even. First time even really holding a transmission. So not too bad. Just want to be very careful. I put everything back the way I took it out. I'm gonna do a real deep cleaning on this thing too, to get all the passages and all the gunk on the outside off. That I'll do off camera, come back for reassembly. Immediate reaction is there seems to be way more rubbers and seals, gaskets in the kit that I received than was visible as I was disassembling stuff. It's not that many rubber components. Most of it is clutch stuff as I disassembled. So I don't know, there seems to be a ton in the rebuild kit that was sent to me. So maybe I'll keep disassembling some components from the outside here and see if I can come across some more replaceable rubbers. But all in all, that was pretty easy. You needed some pliers, a couple sockets, mallet, and a Torx 30 bit to really disassemble the entire transmission. So very simple, not a lot of tools required. I'll spend some time cleaning this up and doing a little research and come back to the table. There was one more item, this piston that was at the very bottom, sitting underneath this cage. I have no idea what you call this thing, but this was sitting underneath it. And now we get a full disassembled transmission. Okay, little check-in. Many hours later, I have literally spent quadruple the time cleaning every little component so far of this transmission than actually disassembling it. I set up the transmission on this stool without a top, and it worked pretty well. Was using the garden hose to degrease and wash it down, and using some carb cleaner, cleaning out all the orifices and galleys for the transmission fluid, and it's coming out really well. I'm pretty happy with it. Coming back over to the table here, I have cleaned off this drum, cleaned and replaced the rings on the transmission oil pump, cleaned off this spring, cleaned the brake band, and cleaned this second gear drive piston thing. I honestly, I forget the name. Cleaned that and replaced the O-rings on it, all the rubbers. And now I am going to disassemble this direct and reverse clutch, which involves replacement of some of these friction plates. So let me go back to the manual one more time, which I should also add, this is the Volkswagen Rabbit Bentley manual, which is much more useful for the automatic transmission that I have, the 010 3-speed. The Rabbit manual is the one you want to look at, and it has all the exploited images of the different clutch packs and pistons. So I'm referring to that. Let me start disassembling this clutch pack and see how it goes. So first things first, there's a circlip here on the outside holding in the clutches, friction plates, and I gotta get that out. So this is the way that it came out. Really know what I'm looking for. There's still grooves in these friction discs or clutches, so I don't know. Doesn't seem too worn out, but there's plenty of buildup of friction material in this. And it looks like there's one more. Now that those are out, there is one of these rings with a bunch of springs on it, and there's a circlip holding it in here. Looks like it's under tension, a lot of tension. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to press that down and release the circlip. What I've done to press in that ring with a bunch of springs is use 2 C-clamps, and they're able to compress it down just enough for me to pry at that circlip. Okay, that was kind of a pain. Now to be very careful, releasing the tension here, nice and even. There's the top. This is the plate that I was pushing down on. Those are the 24 springs, and there they go. This looks like a piston. There's a replaceable ring here. Be it. Maybe an O-ring on the inside here. Looks like there is, so glad I got that apart and should be able to replace, looks like 3 rubbers. What I'm doing to gain access to this rubber back here, this ring seal, is using this curved pick, getting underneath the thing and gently prying up until I get underneath it. It's old, not very movable rubber. So it looks like I do have a replacement seal. I'm just gonna go hit this with some carb cleaner and compressed air before I install the new rubber. As well as this guy. We've got the new seal on here and just installing new seal here. Easier said than done. It's pretty easy to twist these up if you're not paying attention. How that would affect the transmission, I have no clue, but can't be good. All right, that was a little painful. Patience, that feels good. 24 of these. Now I gotta figure out what is replaceable here. So they gave me new metal ones, and they look almost like refurbished, or these don't look new. Like they've had a bunch of crap on them, so I would have to clean these. Either way, whether I reuse my old metal or these ones, I have to clean them. And my old one looks actually a little thicker than the new one here. Yeah, we'll reuse my metal. Interesting. Alright, I'm not exactly sure which of the clutches that I received. They're both the same size, but a little different goes with the one I'm working on now. So I'm going to dig into that a little bit. For now, I'm going to try to get this compressed, I don't even know what you call it. I'm going to try to get this back on. After a little finagling, I got it squished down with what should be enough room. Get this circlip in there. Also not going to be easy, but got a snap. Appears to be seated. Yes, it is. And should be able just to loosen this up. There's 2. There you have it. New seals on the piston there. Now just to figure out what I'm doing with these friction discs here. I believe I've got the right new friction disc selected, and if not, I'll come back later after I get to one of the other clutches that has something similar. I'll compare, but for now, just gonna clean off the metals, place the friction discs, and keep moving forward. I'm going to work on disassembling this forward clutch, it's called. The manual says to use a screwdriver to pry out this circlip, so that's what I'm gonna do. Not too bad. One more circlip holding in this diaphragm spring. I feel like this is under tension. It should probably be pressed, and then not a good way to get at this circlip, even though the manual says go for it. Got it loosened, done. Comes this spring plate. Wish I could tell you what that does. And see, slowly this piston comes out. Not too bad. Feels like it's in pretty good shape. Original VW logo. Yep, down there at the bottom. Tough to read, it's all wet. So I've got my new piston and the friction disc sitting in ATF. They've been in there for about 15 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to put this forward clutch assembly, I think it's called, back together. This is quite the fit. All cleaned up here. There's nothing preventing this from slipping in. Boom. All right. There's that. Just trying to get this circlip to seat all the way. Requires a little bit of pressing. Boom. Just got it to snap. And it looks good. Next is this guy, then that. And last, just the circlip. This one is stiff. Another clutch pack done. So, it is the next day. I have completed pretty much all of the, we'll call them like sub-assemblies of this automatic transmission. So, anything that was replaceable within these clutch packs has been replaced. And then the rest of the bare metals with nothing inside them, or anything without rubbers or anything replaceable like this, that I've cleaned off with carburetor cleaner and blasted it with some compressed air. So everything besides the oil pan and the valve body should be good to go. And if we take a look at the case, this took me hours to get clean, and honestly it's not even perfect, but pretty damn good as I'll probably get something that will live under the car and not be seen by anyone. But obviously this area is the most important. Since it was sitting overnight, I'll probably hit it one more time with brake cleaner and air before I start stacking items in there. So I think I'm going to review the manual one more time just to get an idea for the order of everything and get to work. So let me clean this area up and get the case back on, start stacking. All right, we are ready to start assembling. Have my guide reference from the Rabbit manual at the top here, and I think we're good to go. So first things first is this TF pump. Next is this first reverse gear brake piston. Then this drum called a brake shell. Then the plate with springs, and this gets the bolts. I've got to tighten these to 61 inch-pounds in a diagonal fashion. That's 5 foot-pounds for each of those bolts. Now we need the second gear band brake. That brake band is in. Now we want to do this direct and reverse clutch. Now the next thing to go on is the forward clutch, and there should be some washers underneath. These have a specific orientation. I might try to install both of these at once. There we go. All that good. Then comes this gear with this on afterward. So flat spacer. Now come these discs. Next comes the wavy washer, which is in there. Then it goes metal, then that, and metal. So this went easy enough. I'm gonna try this in a little different order. I'm gonna try putting this in first. That way I know that is seated. Now I'm gonna do these one at a time, which is probably how you're supposed to do it. Now we gotta figure out how to get this on. All right, I was just twisting this around and it sat. Now I have some clearance for this circlip to fit in. This one is not in too tight. Just want to make sure it seats, which it does. Beautiful. And then comes this on top. Feels good. And then this plate goes on top of there with 2 gaskets on either side. Just being careful. Yep. Boom. And then this plate goes on. Being a little finicky. Definitely goes this way. Boom. And then this flathead screw that holds the plate on. The main part of the transmission is done. Still got to put in this second gear servo piston, and I want to disassemble that valve body, which is going to be another mini project. But I am happy to have this done. I have replaced every friction plate and piston, any seal, so anything with rubber, anything that wears is now replaced in here. Everything else is all original. Gonna go to the book a little bit and I'll be right back. Good morning, guys. It is, I think, day 3 of working on the transmission. Taking it day by day, little task at a time. Let me show you where I'm at now. I've got all of the internals stacked back in the main portion of the transmission. I installed the second gear servo piston, I believe it's called. That was a little challenging. Ended up putting it on the drill press there and using the drill to press down on it, and then installed the circlip around the outside. And the other thing I did was install the adjustment rod for the brake band, and that has a specific sequence that I followed in the manual there. Today I want to tackle the disassembly, cleaning, and reassembly of the valve body. Again, I will be referring to the Habit automatic transmission manual, and this is not going to be super challenging, but it definitely requires organization, so I'm going to utilize this bin. Never done one of these before, so I'm gonna probably write out some labels on here just to make sure that all of the little springs and valves that I pull out of this thing go back to where they came from. And like the rest of the transmission, this valve body also has a bunch of friction material and old TF throughout. There's some on this side, you can see. Gotta get my gloves on. So let's dig right in. Again, like the rest of the transmission, kind of a mystery machine. I wish I could tell you exactly the names of each component and how everything works, but I cannot. To me, it looks like a fluid maze. So again, just gonna do my best to stay organized and put everything back where I found it. So here we go. So first step is going to be removing the 19 Phillips head screws on top of the valve body, and the manual says to remove the separator plate and transfer plate as a unit to the ball valves in the valve body remain in the valve body. So that would be the top and the center piece here, the almost like a gasket in between the two pieces sandwiched. So let's remove these 19 screws. 19 screws are out. Now it says to remove the separator plate and transfer plate as a unit. So again, that's the middle part of the sandwich and the top bun, if you will. Now this is the area where there will be ball valves. I want to get a good shot of this to make sure that they return into their original locations if somehow they fall out. Next, the manual says to remove the separator plate from the transfer plate, and I think there's going to be a spring in between these two, so I'm going to be very careful. Here's what the underside looks like. Most of that black stuff is gunk. If I take this, wow, geez, look at that. So now I think this goes at where the accumulator piston goes, like this, and so I think this plate has to be removed in order to get the separator plate off. It's holding it on there. So there was one more ball. I don't know where that one went, but the manual should be able to tell us. And lots of material in here. I'm gonna give this a quick rinse with some carb cleaner and see how it looks when I get back. I'm not even done cleaning this yet. It looks a little bit better. There's still some spots. Takes a lot of carb or brake cleaner to really get this thing restored. Now is the part where I disassemble this thing even further, remove these plates on the bottom and the top, and inside there a bunch of plungers and springs. So just got to stay organized. So I'm just going to keep it in the same orientation as the drawing on the manual here and pull it out piece by piece. So this is the manual valve. Next, I want to remove this bottom plate here, and this is holding in 4 valves. Now just these top 2 plates, this and spring, and then this guy. This valve body is completely disassembled. I have organized this tray of all the valves and plungers and springs to go back in. Now it is just a matter of really cleaning this up. The valve body, the separator plate, and all the miscellaneous hardware. Soaking everything, all the plungers and valves and ATF before they go back in, and reassembling. So now to take some time to clean. I've got these cleaned as well as I possibly can, as well as all of these little components. The best method I found for that was following the instructions of the manual and giving it a rinse in kerosene. worked fantastic with a toothbrush and a paintbrush, followed up by a rinse of acetone and then compressed air. And they are looking spotless. So now it's pretty much time to reassemble in reverse order. Now, valve body goes back. My SD card filled up, but I was able to finish off the transmission by installing the valve body and the strainer, including correctly attaching the linkage here to the throttle and the gear select. So this portion of the transaxle is complete, the transmission. Now we are going to move to the final drive, or differential. Got the oil pan fairly cleaned up. Not perfect, but good enough to remove. Kerosene works really well for removing some of this caked on grime. So I would suggest having a tub like this handy. Even if it gets really dirty, it still works well just to loosen everything up, and then you can hit it with some brake cleaner later once it's all disassembled and really cleans up nicely. So now I'm gonna try to move the oil pan and expose myself to that stinky gear oil. See what's going on. There it goes. Oh! All right, I got my drain pan here. Stuff is stinky. The next thing I want to do is remove these pieces here on the side that attach to the CV axle. They look like this. No rubber on them, but there's a seal on the inside there. I do think I want to remove this cap here. I think it's for something governor. Well, I'm gonna be lying if I said I knew how this thing worked. It does spin with the differential, and it goes in one way. No clue. Looking for rubbers. Don't see any, but there is one on the inside that I will be replacing. Cool. Now I just want to get these 5 bolts off top here. All right, guys. It has been a few days since I left off with the differential work on my automatic transmission, and I've got the differential cleaned up as best as I could. I was using this tray of kerosene. I had incorrect seals sent to me, or maybe I ordered the wrong thing, I'm not sure, but basically I didn't have what I needed to replace the seals that I took out of the differential, so got them in. And what I want to work on today is basically assembling this thing with all the new clean components and rubbers. And I'm just waiting on the pinion seal, or actually there's 2 of them. They get stacked on the top portion of here, I believe. I'll look into that again, but basically I'm just waiting on a couple seals to come in, and everything else should be doable today. So here we go. Got the diff back on the table. What I want to do from here is install things in the reverse order that they came out. So the first thing I want to put back is these plates that lock these assemblies in on the side. I didn't really need to take these out, but I'm gonna install them now. Next thing I'd like to install is this governor that gets put into place like that. And then there's one O-ring on the outside here that gets sealed when you clamp this cover on. And I think actually I'm gonna clean this up a little bit more before installing it. So I decided to put a coat of paint on the outside of that little cover for this governor. So while that is drying, what I can do is install the seals for the axles on both sides of the diff. So I just need a socket to tap this in. Have a 1 11/16 socket that fits perfectly on this seal, and I should be able to press it into place. All right, that was a little bit more difficult than I anticipated. Both seals went in after some reinforcement from this socket on both sides. This side I used grease, worked a little bit smoother. And now I'm ready to install the axle connections here. Other thing I can do at this time is install the torque converter seal, which goes in here, and applying a thin layer of grease on the outside. For this one, I'm using an 1.5" socket. Good, now we're sitting just inside, being flush on the bell housing here, so should be a better seal on the actual torque converter. The last thing I want to do is just install this new large O-ring that goes around the outside here on the connection between the final drive and the transmission. Just gonna lightly coat in some grease all the way around. Guys, it has been another couple days. I realized I didn't get some of the seals in the master rebuild kit, so I had to order those. I forget if I mentioned that or not in the last video, but they came in. I had the seals for the sides here, and I was waiting on one seal for the pinion up here. I also painted the cap for the governor and should be just about ready to install the last few seals and pieces here. And oh, I also painted the oil pan for the differential as well. So I'm gonna get everything all back together here and wrap up. First thing I'd like to do is get the seals back in this pinion cap. To do that, I'm probably gonna put some grease around the outside, try to press them in with a socket. I was able to get the first seal in facing downward like this, and then the next one goes in facing upward like that. I'm just gonna put some grease on this guy as well, and I'll go press it in. Got both seals in, looking good. Now to attach this piece up top. Okay, I want to install the governor and the cap that I painted. I've got this pinion cap on with the seals. I've got the governor cap on, and now I just need to install the oil pan for the diff. All right, we have a complete differential, a complete automatic transmission. We have a complete engine, completely painted, exhaust parts, starter, new fuel tank. We are very close to giving this engine a try. That's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching the rebuild of the transmission and the final drive. Again, this was for a 010 transmission, and the final drive differential is stamped 090. This was a little confusing when ordering parts. It's out of a 78 camper with fuel injection and an automatic transmission. So always appreciate any comments you guys have, suggestions, and please give the video a thumbs up. It's good for the algorithm and good for motivation to keep me going. So stay tuned. We'll look to get the engine started in the next one.